Hello. Let me fix the camera. How are you? November 28th, November 28th, 2021. Um, quarter to 11 p.m. here in the Philippines, Southern Luzon, Bicol region. How are you? Wherever you are in the world. I hope you are doing fine with all this news of a new COVID-19 variant. All right. The question now is, what is the known lineage of Bicol blades blacksmiths? What is the known lineage of Bicol blade blacksmiths? That's our focal point for tonight. By the way, I am Jason Chancoco, your host for the Hagbayon channel, a small YouTube channel that features my thoughts and other stuff. I am an entrepreneur. I am a college professor, writer, rock guitarist, blades researcher. I'm also into martial arts, and I'm also into blade building. I'm an outdoorsman, prepper, survivalist in philosophy and in practice. So, what is the known lineage of Bicol blade blacksmiths? We have here some sample of Bicol style blades. Yeah, this is really a very new blade from a friend of mine named Angel Beatriz. This one is also from Angel Beatriz. This one is from the brother of Angel, Christian Beatriz. So they are all my friends, all blacksmiths. We have here Bicol style blades, and this style of blade building is very uh, cosmopolitan in the Bicol region, particularly in the Rinconada area. So this particular design ought to have some kind of lineage, so to speak. So let's talk about said lineage for tonight. So let's have this as our carry blade. Let's just hold this one. Right. But before we ask as to the lineage of Bicol blades blacksmith, let's ask first. We ask who could afford, no? Who could afford well adorned and prime builds, no? Well adorned prime builds of Bicol style blades. As you know, there are also marketplace derivatives or marketplace types or samples that you only get to buy in the marketplace, and they are straightforward, pretty straightforward and simple builds, and a little bit commercialized and a bit cheap. So, who can afford well-adorned prime builds? The answer to that is, of course, in history, if we look back, of course, the Datus and the Maginoo, or the people of the higher echelon of society. As you know, Bicol was into gold mining, and because of the development in gold mining, metallurgy or blacksmithing also became highly developed. And in fact, the Bikolnons were producing uh, a lot of uh, great uh, items for warfare or battle. According to some accounts, they say that the Bikolnons had lots of words for warfare. Okay, and lots of examples of weapons, armor, etc. Stuff that was being used for warfare during the ancient times. Another question is, who were some of the Bicol Datus? Now, we asked who could afford, great blades like this one, for example. We said that the Datus in Maginoos. Now, the question now is, who were some, who were some of the Bicol Datus? According to legend, it's still a legend that there was really 10 Bornean Datus. So from Borneo, these 10 Datus actually traveled to the Philippines by the name of Dumangsil and Balangusa. These two Datus were part of the group, the 10 Bornean Datus, as per legend. Now, Dumangsil and Balangusa settled in Laguna and Bicol. So they are part of the 10 Bornean Datus who traveled to the Philippines, and the two of them, the two Datus, namely Dumangsil and Balangusa, settled in Laguna and in Bicol. However, according to Fray de la Huerta, no, Panga, or Datu Panga was the chief of Bua, o Nabua. And it is claimed, or he claimed to be a descendant of the Bornean caste. So apparently, it's not really a legend because there's record that, well, according to Fray de la Huerta, there was a Datu named by the name of Datu Panga. Datu Panga was chief of Bua or Nabua, and he claimed to be a descendant of the Bornean caste. Okay. Another question is, how was the economic station of no, how was the economic situation of the Bicolanos at that time? Um, According to Morga, through his book Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, uh, published in the 1600s, the Bicolanos, if you would describe them, were of average height, with sun-bronzed complexion, and with very black hair. And according to Capitan Don Cristobal Tacom, the commander of the Spanish garrison of Catanduanes in 1576, the Bicolanos were corpulent or fat. I mean, the Bicolanos were corpulent or fat, and they wore attire that resembled those of the Visayans. So another kind of a proof that the Bicolanos were a lot related to the Visayans, even as per apparel. So in effect, describing the Bicolanos as corpulent or fat, it seemed that the Bicols or the Bicol region was progressive at the time, particularly due to gold mining or perhaps the abaca trade. All right. In this case, did they have social classes? All right. Apparently, they had the so-called Maginoo as the highest class, followed by the Timawa and the Oripon. The Oripon was the class for the slaves, or well uh, the workers, or the lower class household workers, etc. The Oripon, or the if you directly translate Oripon, it means slave, actually. Bicol word for a servant. All right. Now, what was the unit of government at the time? At the time, we had the duluhan or barangay. These duluhans or barangays were politically independent of each other. However, there would be inter-village raids. Okay, perhaps due to the fact that these barangays or duluhans were interdependent. Oh no, or independent of each other. And apparently, there was a well-populated village that the ancient Bicols believed to be as the center of the Bicol region. And some people opine that this could be Naga City. All right. And how did they guard Duluhan? All right. They guarded Duluhan through the Moog or kind of an indigenous watchtower atop tall trees, and via the kota or the fortification. Which brings us back to the Datus. Now, what was the role of the Datus at the time? Well, at the time, the Datus were the supreme commander in war, and the executive and the legislative and the judiciary at the same time. The Datus implemented the laws, made the laws, and interpreted the laws, and became judge and jury at the same time, um, or judge and executioner. Was the Datu alone in decision making, though? Actually, no. He was not alone because he was guided by a council of elders, or the matatanda or the matanda. Now, who were some of the datus of Bicol? Some of the datus of Bicol were the following. We have Datu Panga. Well, this is according to historical records. Datu Panga from Antacodo. Mhm. Datu Bunayog from Kaubnan. Datu Tongdo from Bua. Dato Magpaano from Binapan, and Dato Kaayaw of Sabang. Now, Anacodo, Kaubnan, Bua, Binagpan, and Sabang were all part of Nabwa. Now, Nabwa became Iriga later, in the sense that the people of Iriga came from Nabwa. Now, Nabwa was almost always inundated during typhoons and rainy season. So the people of Nabwa, some of the people of Nabwa moved towards higher ground, or Iraga or Iriga. So there, apparently the Datus of Nabwa were actually also Datus of Iriga. We also have either Manoy, Noah Aleph official 2. Right. We have Dumogma, o Datu of Kalilinyo or Bato. We have Pagkilatan, Datu Makabangoy, Datu Sumpungan, Datu Mabaw of Ligaw. We also have Datu Hukoman of Abasi Ligaw, Datu Dumaraog of Albay. Now, Albay is now called Sorsogon, because before we used to call Albay as Ibalon. Now, Dumaraog is the namesake of Dumanaog Bakong Sorsogon. Dumanaog Bakong Sorsogon. Now, the earlier mentioned Datus were the Datus that are actually reflected in written history. However, as for the Datus that are part of oral tradition, we have the following. These are now the Datus as per oral tradition. We have Gat Sirangan of Matnog. We have Gat Liko of Gubat. We have Gat Hatik of Bulan. We have Gat Ibal of ancient Albay. So as we said, Albay used to be Ibal. Now it's called Albay. While Sorsogon, was Albay at the time. Now, were these barangays always in harmony? Actually, no, because as per Governor General Lavizares, there were village to village wars. But usually, wars are waged against villages that have no treaty or commerce with them. Heather Manay and Marie's TV. So there were village to village wars in ancient Bicol, but only to those wars are waged against villages that would not want to have treaties or commerce with the others. So, for example, this particular village in Nabua doesn't want to have a treaty or doesn't want to engage in commerce with a village here in Albay. So Albay would know that the village in Albay would know, strike, start a war. Hi there, Ma'am Anne Marie. Hi there, Manoy Aleph official. Noah Aleph official. Now, how about peace talks? They used to have Sandugo, okay, also, and intermediaries like the Kagon. They used to call their intermediaries as Kagon. Now, how about surprise attacks? Actually, they had surprise attacks as per Tokol. They used to call it Tokol, and it's by way of raiding or ambushing inhabitants of the offending village. That's the surprise attack of those times. Surprise retaliation or something. Or if you will retaliate, it's not supposed to be surprise, right? So there, it's called Tokol. And we have Ngayaw, which was a form of piracy and robbery, using mongsad or light and swift vessels. So surprise attacks. Now, where do the blacksmiths come in this scene, in this situation? Now, the blacksmiths or the pandays uh, uh, had shops called Toltogan, and they would come in because these blacksmiths would produce household articles, agricultural implements, complex weaponry, tools, etc. needed for the needed by the uh, village in peace or in war. Now, each village would have a blacksmith, either Manino Aleph official. Each village would have a blacksmith, and each blacksmith would have apprentices. Usually, the apprentices would be part of the family, okay? Family of the blacksmith. Uh, and blacksmithing became a generational activity. However, a blacksmith could also find himself childless and perhaps have apprentices coming from other families or villages. Now, what was the legend of Tampawak? Uh, Tampawak is, well, according to, at least according to recent memory, Tampawak is the source, no, the source of the information or of the knowledge. Okay, the knowledge when it comes to the motif in Bicol blade building. So, for example, let's talk of the motif. The motif is usually that Bicol blades would have carabao horn handle or perhaps albino horn handle, and with rat tail tongue through and through. And this is the crown or the barat. So that's part of the motif. And prime Bicol blades coming usually from the Rinconada area would have hilt carving. For instance, this one is Tenegre hilt carving. It would have a ferrule, sometimes with a gardation, but that is already a kind of a native, no longer native, but traditional build. And would usually have a labor somewhere here, labor, or engraving on the blade itself. By the way, this is a ginugon blade, uh, one of the derivatives of the Bicol ginunting. Now, another motif is the use of the so-called scabbard rings or locks called bakurong. Yeah, that's a Bicol blade motif, and of course the carving here is a Bicol blade motif. So there may be variations as per the individual carvings, but the motif itself, came from somewhere. It came from kind of a, or a type of a, or some kind of a blacksmithing culture, which is a Bicol blacksmithing culture, particularly with great expression coming from when it comes from the Rinconada area. So that's it. Now it is said that the Tampawak was a person named Tampawak was the source of the knowledge on how to build the Bicol blades when we talk about it as per recent history, because Tampawak, I think, was already Tampawak during World War II or World War II era or post World War II era. Napaka-smart ng itak, sir. Yeah, thank you, Madam Anne Marie. Um, so he's fairly recent, actually, Tampawak. I think he lived in the year 1940s, 50s, even 50s or 60s even. And now the legend of Tampawak says that there's this blacksmith who was so drunk that uh, he fell off a bridge and fell in the water. So he made a splash on the water, hence the name Tampaw. Hence the name Tampawak. Hence the moniker Tampawak. So when he made a splash on the water, nagtampawak sa tubig. So now people started to call him Tampawak in jest, and it became his moniker. And when people wanted to, you know, have a blade built by him, they would just look for him and look for Tampawak. And now the rest of the generation following Tampawak, his kids, his grandkids, were also called Tampawak. More so that uh, many of his kids and grandkids followed his footsteps, his footsteps in being a what? In being a blacksmith. All right. According to a friend of mine, a blacksmith friend of mine named June Ramos, Tampawak was actually named Valle. His sure name was actually Valle. And now Tampawak had an apprentice by the name of Cadiz Tamboyong. And Cadiz was able to master the style and technique of Tampawak, and made some modifications of his own. No, not real modifications. Perfected it, perhaps made it better, and but still not deviating from the from the general motif of Bicol blades. And now Cadiz became the what? Became the maestro or the teacher of the rest of the Bicol blacksmiths that actually followed this motif, the Minasbad's motif, and the Ginunting's motif, the Sinagangan's motif, etc. Now, if you want some info on Bicol blades profiles, hilt carvings, and various topics on Bicol blades, you might want to check my earlier videos on the subject. Now, as we were saying, Cadiz became the sort of maestro of the rest of uh, the Bicol blacksmiths that followed him, including his children, the Rambuyong blacksmiths, Fidel, we have Ponyo, we have Nestor, and also the lineage of Tampawak, okay, uh, who also learned from Cadiz one way or the other, including the Valles, like for Salvador Valle is one of the elders. Salvador Valle, we have Sonny Valle, Jesse Valle, and the Valle Beatriz brothers, the Valle Beatriz brothers by the name of Sofronio, Jomar, Christian, and Angel. All right. That's for our discussion on the legend of Tampawak, or the lineage of the Bicol blacksmith. So there. By the way, I'm Jason, your host. This channel is devoted to current events. What else? Literature, rock music, the outdoors, blade culture, prepping, survivalism, etc. Thanks for watching, and remember, the pen is mightier with a sword.